Welcome, dear friend. Tonight is a time for calm and gentle thoughts. Let the day fade softly behind you as you settle into a quiet space. Imagine the glow of evening light, the hush of a peaceful home, and the warmth of comfort surrounding you. These reflections are here to soothe your heart and guide you toward rest. Take a slow breath and let peace begin. The evening light stretched softly across Willow Lane, painting the quiet street in hues of amber and rose. The houses stood like old friends, their windows glowing warmly as lamps flickered on inside. A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of lilacs from a garden nearby, mingling with the earthy aroma of freshly watered soil. Inside one of these homes, Margaret sat in her favorite armchair by the window. The chair had been hers for decades, its cushions molded to the shape of her life. She held a porcelain teacup, steam curling upward like whispers of comfort. Outside, sparrows hopped along the fence, their tiny movements calm and deliberate, as if they too understood the rhythm of slowing down. Margaret loved these quiet hours, the time when the day softened and the world seemed to exhale. She thought of the words she had read earlier, a reflection that lingered in her heart. Peace flows like a gentle river when we trust the one who guides its course. She smiled faintly, feeling the truth of it settle deep within her. Life had been full of currents, some swift, some still, but tonight the river was calm. The clock ticked softly in the background, its sound steady and reassuring. Margaret's home was filled with little reminders of love, framed photographs on the mantel, a knitted throw draped over the couch, and the scent of lavender from a sachet tucked into a drawer. These were not grand things, but they were enough. They spoke of a life lived with care and grace. Even in the quiet, there is presence, she reflected, recalling another gentle thought from her morning reading. We are never truly alone, for the one who made the stars also watches over us. Outside, the sky deepened into twilight, and the first stars began to appear, tiny sparks against a canvas of indigo. Margaret leaned back, letting her gaze soften. She imagined those stars as lanterns of hope, each one a reminder that light remains, even in the darkest hours. Margaret rose slowly from her chair, her joints moving with the careful grace of years well lived. She carried her teacup to the kitchen, where the soft hum of the refrigerator filled the quiet. The kitchen smelled faintly of chamomile and honey, a comforting scent that reminded her of evenings spent with family long ago. She rinsed the cup and placed it gently in the sink, then paused to look out the window above it. The garden outside was bathed in twilight, the flowers folding their petals as if preparing for sleep. A single lantern glowed near the path, casting a circle of golden light on the stones. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it, she thought, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought her comfort. It wasn't just about the lantern, it was about life itself. Even when shadows lengthen, light remains. Margaret opened the back door and stepped onto the porch. The air was cool and tender, carrying the scent of lilacs and damp earth. She listened to the evening sounds, the distant chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves, and the soft sigh of wind through the trees. Each sound felt like a gentle lullaby, a reminder that nature knows how to rest. She walked slowly to the garden bench, her steps measured and calm. Sitting down, she let her hands rest on her lap and closed her eyes for a moment. The breeze brushed against her cheeks like a blessing. "Be still and know that peace is near," she reflected, feeling the truth of those words settle deep inside. Life had its storms, but here, under the open sky, there was only calm. Margaret opened her eyes and looked toward the horizon. The last light of day lingered like a soft promise, fading into shades of violet and blue. She thought of the many evenings she had spent here, watching the seasons turn, each one carrying its own quiet beauty. Just as the earth rests after its labor, so too may we find rest for our souls, she whispered, letting the thought drift like a leaf on water. Margaret lingered on the garden bench, her hands resting gently on her lap. The evening air felt like a soft shawl draped around her shoulders, warm yet cool enough to remind her of the coming night. She listened to the distant hum of life, the faint sound of a car passing on the lane, the muted laughter of children playing before bedtime, and the rhythmic chirping of crickets weaving their song into the twilight. She thought of how life, much like this evening, had its quiet moments of grace. There were times when everything seemed hurried, and then there were times like this, slow, tender, and full of meaning. "Come to the quiet waters, and you will find rest," she reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always spoken to her heart. It wasn't about a river or a stream. It was about the stillness that comes when we let go of worry and lean into peace. Margaret's gaze wandered to the flowers along the path. The roses were closing their petals, folding inward as if in prayer. She smiled at the thought. Even the flowers knew when to rest. The earth teaches us to pause, to breathe, and to trust the rhythm of life, she whispered softly, letting the words settle like dew on her soul. She rose from the bench and walked slowly back toward the porch. The lantern's glow followed her steps, casting gentle shadows that danced across the stones. Inside, the house welcomed her with its familiar warmth. She closed the door behind her and stood for a moment in the quiet hallway, listening to the hush that filled the rooms. Margaret moved to the living room and switched on a small lamp. Its light was soft and golden, pooling gently across the table where a book lay open. She picked it up and traced her fingers along the page, remembering the words she had read earlier. "Even in the night, light will guide you, and peace will keep you." She sat down again in her favorite chair, pulling the knitted throw over her lap. The fabric was worn but comforting, like an old friend who had stayed through every season. She leaned back and closed her eyes, breathing deeply. The scent of lavender drifted from the sachet nearby, mingling with the faint aroma of chamomile that still lingered in the air. Let your heart be still, for you are held in gentle hands, she reflected, feeling the truth of those words wrap around her like the throw on her lap. Outside, the stars were multiplying, filling the sky with quiet brilliance. Margaret imagined them as tiny promises, each one whispering that peace is never far away. Margaret sat quietly, the knitted throw warming her legs as the soft lamplight pooled around her. The house was hushed now, as if it too had settled into evening's embrace. She could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the mantel, a steady rhythm that reminded her of the gentle passage of time. She reached for the book on the table, its pages worn and familiar. It wasn't just a book, it was a companion through countless nights like this. She opened to a passage she had marked earlier and read slowly, letting the words sink in. When the heart is weary, rest comes like a gift from above. Margaret closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the truth of those words. Life had its burdens, but tonight they felt lighter, as if the quiet had lifted them away. Lay down your cares, for the one who watches over you never sleeps, she reflected, paraphrasing another verse that had always brought her peace. The lamp cast a golden glow across the room, touching the edges of framed photographs on the wall. Faces smiled back at her, memories of family gatherings, laughter, and love. Margaret felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Give thanks for the simple blessings, for they are the threads that weave joy into our days, she whispered softly. Outside, the night deepened, and the stars multiplied like tiny lanterns scattered across the sky. Margaret imagined each star as a promise, a quiet assurance that even in darkness, light remains. She leaned back in her chair, letting her thoughts drift like leaves on a gentle stream. Peace is not far, it is as near as the breath you take, she reflected, feeling her body relax with each slow inhale and exhale. The room seemed to hum with stillness, a tender silence that wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Margaret thought of the garden outside, now resting under the night sky. The flowers had folded their petals, the lantern had dimmed, and the earth itself seemed to sigh in relief. Just as the earth rests after its labor, so too may we find rest for our souls, she murmured, letting the thought linger like a lullaby. Margaret's eyes grew heavy as she sat in the soft glow of the lamp. The room felt like a sanctuary, a quiet refuge where time slowed and peace lingered. She listened to the steady ticking of the clock, each sound like a gentle heartbeat in the silence. She thought of the day behind her, the simple tasks, the quiet moments, the laughter she had heard from the children down the lane. It had been an ordinary day, yet it felt full, like a cup brimming with blessings. Gratitude turns the simplest moments into treasures, she reflected, letting the thoughts settle deep within her. Margaret reached for the book one last time, her fingers brushing the worn cover. She read a line she had marked long ago. When night falls, let your heart rest in the promise of peace. She closed the book and placed it gently on the table. Outside, the stars shimmered like tiny lanterns scattered across the heavens. Margaret imagined them as whispers of hope, each one saying, "You are cared for. You are loved." Even in the stillness, there is presence, she thought, paraphrasing a verse that had carried her through many seasons. The one who made the stars also watches over you. Her breathing slowed, deep and steady. The lavender scent drifted softly through the room, mingling with the hush of night. Margaret felt her body relax, her thoughts quieting like ripples fading on a pond. Peace is near. It is as close as the breath you take, she whispered, her voice barely audible. She leaned back, pulling the knitted throw closer, and let her eyes close. The world outside continued its gentle rhythm, the crickets singing, the wind sighing through the trees, the stars keeping watch. And in that quiet, Margaret surrendered to rest, her heart wrapped in calm, her soul held in peace. Sleep comes gently when trust is deep, she reflected one last time, before drifting into dreams as soft as the evening light. Good evening. You've arrived at a moment of stillness, a time to let go of the weight of the day. Picture yourself in a cozy cottage by a calm lake, where the water shimmers under the fading light and the air carries the scent of pine and fresh earth. These gentle words will bring calm to your spirit and remind you of the quiet blessings that surround you. Breathe deeply and let serenity fill your heart. The lake stretched out like a sheet of glass, its surface catching the last golden rays of the sun. Ripples moved lazily across the water, stirred by a breeze so soft it felt like a whisper. The cottage stood at the edge of the shore, its wooden frame glowing warmly in the sunset light. Smoke curled gently from the chimney, carrying the faint scent of cedar and pine. Inside, Thomas sat in a rocking chair near the window, watching the evening unfold. The chair creaked softly with each movement, a sound that blended with the hush of the lake outside. On the table beside him rested a cup of warm tea, steam rising in delicate spirals. The heavens declare peace in their quiet beauty, he reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought him comfort. The sky above was painted in hues of rose and amber, fading slowly into violet. It was a canvas of calm, a reminder that endings can be as beautiful as beginnings. Thomas leaned back, letting his gaze soften. He could hear the gentle lap of water against the shore, the distant call of a loon echoing across the lake. Each sound felt like a note in a lullaby, guiding his thoughts toward rest. Be still and let your soul find its quiet harbor. he whispered, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within him. The cottage was filled with the warmth of simple things. A knitted blanket draped over the arm of the chair, a stack of well-loved books on the shelf, and the faint aroma of bread cooling on the counter. These were not grand treasures, but they were enough. They spoke of care, of home, of peace. Even in the smallest blessings, grace flows like a gentle stream, Thomas thought, his heart softening with gratitude. Thomas rose from his chair and walked slowly to the kitchen. The wooden floor creaked softly beneath his feet, a familiar sound that felt like home. The kitchen was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of freshly baked bread cooling on the counter. He sliced a piece and spread a thin layer of honey across it, watching the golden sweetness glisten in the fading light. He carried the plate back to the window and sat down again, savoring the simple comfort of bread and tea. Outside, the lake shimmered like liquid gold, reflecting the last rays of the sun. The water was calm, broken only by the occasional ripple from a drifting leaf. As the day ends, let gratitude rise like the evening light, Thomas reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always spoken to his heart. Gratitude, he thought, was the quiet key to peace, the gentle door that opened to rest. He looked around the cottage, taking in the small details, the worn rug by the hearth, the stack of firewood neatly arranged, the vase of wildflowers on the table. Each thing told a story of care and simplicity. Even in the smallest things, grace whispers its presence, he thought, feeling a wave of calm wash over him. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of violet and rose. Thomas stood and opened the door to the porch. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of pine and the faint sweetness of wildflowers. He stepped outside and listened to the evening sounds, the gentle lap of water against the shore, the distant call of a loon, and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. "Be still and know that peace is near," he whispered, letting the words settle deep inside. The lake seemed to mirror the truth, its surface smooth and serene, reflecting the quiet beauty of the sky above. Thomas sat on the porch bench, the wood cool beneath his hands. He watched as the first stars appeared, tiny sparks against the deepening blue. Each star felt like a promise, a reminder that even in darkness, light remains. The night brings rest, and with it, the assurance of care. He reflected, breathing deeply as the cool air filled his lungs. Thomas sat quietly on the porch bench, watching the stars multiply across the deepening sky. The lake mirrored their glow, tiny sparks shimmering on its surface like scattered jewels. The air was cool now, carrying the earthy scent of pine and the faint sweetness of wildflowers. He pulled the knitted blanket around his shoulders, feeling its warmth settle like a gentle embrace. The night sky speaks of quiet strength and endless care, he reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought him peace. Each star seemed to whisper a promise that even in darkness, light remains, and even in silence, presence endures. He listened to the soft rhythm of the water lapping against the shore. It was a sound that had comforted him for years, a steady, soothing cadence that reminded him of life's gentle flow. Peace moves like water, steady and sure, shaping the shores of our hearts. He thought, letting the words drift through his mind like ripples across the lake. Inside the cottage, the fire crackled softly in the hearth, its glow spilling through the open door. Thomas rose and stepped inside, the warmth wrapping around him like a familiar friend. He placed another log on the fire and watched as the flames danced, their light flickering across the walls. Even in the smallest flame, hope burns bright, he whispered, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within. He moved to the table and opened a worn journal, its pages filled with reflections from years past. He read a line he had written long ago. When the day grows quiet, let your soul lean into grace. Thomas smiled faintly, grateful for the wisdom that had carried him through so many seasons. He closed the journal and sat back, listening to the fire's gentle crackle and the distant call of the loon outside. Rest comes when we trust the one who holds the night, he reflected, breathing deeply as calm filled his heart. Thomas sat by the fire, the warmth wrapping around him like a gentle embrace. The flames flickered softly, casting golden light across the walls and ceiling. Shadows danced in slow rhythm, as if the cottage itself were breathing in harmony with the night. He listened to the crackle of the logs, each sound a quiet reassurance that all was well. On the table beside him lay a small wooden box filled with keepsakes, letters, photographs, and tiny mementos from years gone by. He opened it and lifted a faded photograph of his family gathered by this very lake, their faces bright with laughter. Love endures like the steady flame, warming the heart even in the coldest seasons. He reflected, feeling gratitude rise like a tide within him. He placed the photo back in the box and closed the lid gently. Outside, the stars shimmered brighter now, their reflections dancing on the lake's surface. The loon called again, its voice echoing across the water like a hymn of the night. Creation sings of peace, if only we pause to listen, Thomas whispered, letting the words settle deep inside. He rose and walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The view was breathtaking, the lake glowing under the starlight, the trees standing like silent guardians along the shore. He breathed deeply, filling his lungs with the cool, pine-scented air. The breath of life is a gift. Let each moment be received with grace, he thought, closing his eyes for a moment of quiet prayer. Returning to his chair, Thomas pulled the blanket closer and leaned back. His body felt heavy now, but in a good way, a weight of calm, of surrender. The fire's glow softened, and the room seemed to hum with stillness. Rest is not weakness, it is the strength that renews the soul, he reflected, his thoughts slowing like ripples fading on a pond. The fire had burned low now, its glow soft and steady like a lantern in the dark. Thomas sat quietly, the knitted blanket pulled close around his shoulders. His breathing slowed, deep and even, as the hush of night wrapped around the cottage like a gentle embrace. He thought of the day behind him, the golden sunset over the lake, the simple meal, the quiet moments of gratitude. It had been an ordinary day, yet it felt full, like a cup brimming with blessings. Gratitude turns the simplest hours into treasures, he reflected, letting the thought settle deep within his heart. Thomas rose and walked to the window one last time. The stars shimmered above the lake, their reflections dancing on the water surface. He stood there for a moment, breathing in the cool night air, feeling the peace of creation settle over him like a soft quilt. Even in the stillness, there is presence, he whispered, recalling a truth that had carried him through many seasons. The one who made the stars also watches over you. He returned to his chair and sat down slowly, pulling the blanket close. The fire crackled softly, its light flickering like a lullaby. Thomas closed his eyes, his thoughts quieting like ripples fading on a pond. Peace is near. It is as close as the breath you take, he reflected, his voice barely audible. Outside, the lake lay calm under the starlit sky, the loon's call echoing faintly across the water. The world seemed to hum with stillness, a tender silence that wrapped around everything like a blessing. Sleep comes gently when trust is deep, Thomas thought, surrendering to the quiet. His breathing slowed even more, deep and steady. The warmth of the fire, the scent of pine, the hush of the lake, all of it blended into a single melody of peace. Thomas felt his body grow heavy, his thoughts drifting like leaves on a gentle stream. Rest now, for the night is kind and the morning will bring new light, he whispered one last time, before slipping into dreams as soft as the evening breeze. Welcome to this quiet hour. The day has done its work, and now it's time for rest. Imagine a cozy library filled with warm lamplight, the soft patter of rain against the windows, and the scent of old books mingling with fresh tea. These reflections will help you drift into peace, carrying you gently toward sleep. Close your eyes and let the calm embrace you. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows, each drop a gentle note in nature's lullaby. The library glowed with warm lamplight, casting golden pools across the wooden floor. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books whose spines told stories of years gone by. The air carried the comforting scent of paper and ink, mingled with the faint aroma of chamomile tea brewing nearby. Eleanor sat in a deep armchair near the window, her hands resting on a worn book. She loved evenings like this, quiet, tender, and full of the music of rain. Outside, The garden blurred under the silver curtain of water, each leaf shimmering as droplets slid down its surface. As the rain falls, let your heart be washed in peace, she reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought her comfort. The rhythm of the rain felt like grace itself, steady, cleansing, and kind. She opened the book and read a line slowly, savoring the words. When the soul is weary, rest flows like gentle rain upon dry ground. Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, letting the thought settle deep inside. Life had its seasons of drought, but tonight, the rain was enough. Peace comes softly, like water finding its way to thirsty roots, she whispered, feeling her breath slow. The fire crackled in the hearth, its glow flickering across the room. Eleanor listened to its quiet song, mingling with the patter of rain and the occasional sigh of wind against the glass. Each sound felt like a thread in a tapestry of calm, weaving comfort into the evening. Even in the storm, there is shelter. Even in the night, there is light, she reflected, her heart softening with gratitude. Eleanor turned another page, her fingers brushing the soft, worn paper. The words felt like old friends, gentle, familiar, and full of quiet wisdom. Outside, the rain continued its tender rhythm, tapping against the glass like a patient visitor. The sound was steady and soothing, a melody that seemed to wash away the weight of the day. She set the book aside and reached for her teacup, lifting it slowly to her lips. The chamomile was warm and fragrant, its floral sweetness mingling with the earthy scent of the rain-soaked garden beyond the window. Let your soul drink deeply of peace as roots drink from the rain, she reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought her comfort. The thought lingered like steam rising from the cup, soft, curling, and full of grace. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, its glow casting gentle shadows across the shelves. Eleanor watched the flames dance, their light flickering like tiny blessings scattered across the room. Even in the smallest flame, hope burns bright, she whispered, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within her heart. She rose and walked slowly to the tall window, pulling the curtain aside. The garden shimmered under the silver veil of rain, each leaf glistening like polished glass. Drops slid down the panes, tracing paths that caught the lamplight in fleeting sparks. The heavens send rain to renew the earth, so too does grace renew the soul, she thought, breathing deeply as the cool scent of rain drifted in. Returning to her chair, Eleanor pulled the knitted throw across her lap and leaned back. Her body felt heavy now, but in a good way, a weight of calm, of surrender. The rain's rhythm blended with the fire's crackle, weaving a lullaby that filled the room with peace. Be still and know that you are held, she reflected, her thoughts slowing like ripples fading on a pond. The rain fell steadily now, its rhythm deepening into a soft, melodic hum. Eleanor listened as each drop tapped against the glass, blending with the crackle of the fire and the occasional sigh of wind. The library felt like a sanctuary, a warm refuge where time slowed and peace lingered. She reached for another book from the shelf, its leather cover smooth and cool beneath her fingers. Opening it, she read a line that seemed to echo the evening's quiet. When the heart is burdened, let the gentle rain of grace wash it clean. Eleanor closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the truth of those words settle like dew on her soul. Peace flows like rain upon thirsty ground, she whispered softly, letting the thought drift through her mind like a leaf on water. The lamplight glowed warmly, casting golden halos across the pages. Shadows danced on the walls, moving in slow rhythm with the flicker of the fire. Eleanor watched them for a moment, her thoughts quieting like ripples fading on a pond. Even in the shadows, light remains, she reflected, paraphrasing a verse that had always brought her comfort. She rose and walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The garden beyond shimmered under the silver veil of rain, each leaf glistening like polished glass. Drops slid down the panes, tracing paths that caught the lamplight in fleeting sparks. The heavens send rain to renew the earth, so too does grace renew the soul, she thought, breathing deeply as the cool scent of rain drifted in. Returning to her chair, Eleanor pulled the knitted throw across her lap and leaned back. Her body felt heavy now, but in a good way, a weight of calm, of surrender. The rain's rhythm blended with the fire's crackle, weaving a lullaby that filled the room with peace. Be still and know that you are held, she reflected, her thoughts slowing like ripples fading on a pond. The rain softened now, its rhythm slowing to a gentle patter against the glass. Eleanor listened as the drops fell like whispered blessings, each one a quiet reminder that life moves in tender cycles. Storms give way to calm, and night brings rest after the day's labor. She rose from her chair and walked to the hearth, placing another log on the fire. The flames caught quickly, their glow spreading warmth through the room. Shadows danced across the shelves, moving in slow harmony with the flicker of light. Even in the smallest flame, hope burns bright, she reflected, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within her heart. On the table lay her journal, its pages filled with thoughts from seasons past. She opened it and read a line she had written long ago. When the rain falls, let your soul drink deeply of grace. Eleanor smiled faintly, grateful for the wisdom that had carried her through so many years. Grace flows like water, finding its way to every dry place, she whispered softly, letting the thought linger like steam rising from a cup. She returned to the window and pulled the curtain aside. The garden shimmered under the silver veil of rain, each leaf glistening like polished glass. Drops slid down the panes, tracing paths that caught the lamplight in fleeting sparks. The heavens send rain to renew the earth, so too does peace renew the soul, she thought, breathing deeply as the cool scent of rain drifted in. Eleanor sat back in her chair, pulling the knitted throw across her lap. Her body felt heavy now, but in a good way, a weight of calm, of surrender. The fire's glow softened, and the room seemed to hum with stillness. Be still and know that you are held, she reflected, her thoughts slowing like ripples fading on a pond. The rain had softened to a gentle whisper now, its rhythm slow and tender against the glass. Eleanor sat quietly in her armchair, the knitted throw warming her lap as the fire glowed softly in the hearth. Shadows flickered across the walls, moving in harmony with the flames, as if the room itself were breathing in calm. She thought of the day behind her, the simple tasks, the quiet moments, the gift of rain that had turned the evening into a sanctuary. It had been an ordinary day, yet it felt full, like a cup brimming with blessings. Gratitude turns the simplest hours into treasures, she reflected, letting the thought settle deep within her heart. Eleanor reached for her journal one last time and wrote a single line. Peace comes softly, like rain upon thirsty ground. She closed the book and placed it gently on the table, her fingers lingering on the worn cover. Outside, the garden shimmered under the silver veil of rain, each leaf glistening like a quiet promise. Even in the stillness, there is presence, she whispered, recalling a truth that had carried her through many seasons. The one who sends the rain also watches over you. Her breathing slowed, deep and steady. The scent of chamomile drifted softly through the room, mingling with the earthy fragrance of rain. Eleanor felt her body relax, her thoughts quieting like ripples fading on a pond. Peace is near. It is as close as the breath you take, she reflected, her voice barely audible. The fire crackled softly, its glow flickering like a lullaby. The rain's rhythm blended with the hush of the night, weaving a melody of calm that filled the room. Eleanor closed her eyes, surrendering to the quiet. Sleep comes gently when trust is deep, she thought, before slipping into dreams as soft as the rain.